Welcome back. What if Naruto Uzumaki didn't stop at saving his own world? What if Chakra tore through dimensions? And Naruto entered High School DxD, a world of devils, angels, and gods. Only to stand above them all. Like the video and subscribe, because this is not a crossover about survival. It's about dominion. Chapter 1. The sky over Kuoh wasn't just dark, it was bruised. A deep, sickly violet bled into the horizon, the kind of color that suggested the atmosphere itself was dying. In the center of this atmospheric decay, a rift torn by sheer, unadult, orated willpower hummed with a frequency that vibrated the marrow in human bones. It wasn't a portal made of magic or demonic circles. It was a jagged wound in reality, stitched together by golden, flickering flames in the dying embers of a world that had seen too many wars. Naruto Uzumaki didn't fall, he descended. His boots hit the asphalt of an empty construction site with the weight of a meteor. A shockwave rippled outward, shattering the windows of half-finished high-rises and sending a plume of dust into the air that tasted like ozone and old blood. He stood in the center of the crater, his breathing heavy, ragged. The orange jumpsuit was gone, replaced by a tattered, black tactical cloak that billowed in a wind he had brought with him from the elemental nations. His eyes, usually the blue of a summer sky, were slitted, glowing with a predatory crimson that flickered between the wisdom of a sage and the malice of a beast. So this is it, he muttered, his voice a low rasp. The big exit. Inside him, a cage rattled. It's quiet here, Naruto. Too quiet. The energy, it's stagnant. I hear ya, Kurama, Naruto replied internally, his hand tightening on a three-pronged kunai. It's not home, but it's where we are. And if these devils and angels think they own the block, they're about to find out what a real monster looks like. He looked up. Kuoh Academy loomed in the distance. He could smell them already. The stench of pride, the cloying scent of ancient bloodlines. To them, he was an anomaly. To him, they were targets. Naruto moved. He didn't run, he blurred. In the heart of the occult research club, Rias Grimori froze. Her crimson hair seemed to dull as a cold sweat broke across her neck. She dropped the teacup she was holding. Akeno Himahima, standing by the window, didn't even have time to make a playful comment. President, Akeno whispered, something just hit the city. It's like a sun just collapsed. I felt it, Rias said, her voice trembling. Issei, get the others. Now. Naruto reached the edge of the school grounds. He crouched atop a telephone pole, his cloak snapping. Below him, the mundane world continued, oblivious. But he wasn't looking at the humans. He was looking at the shadows. To his eyes, refined by the six paths, their barriers were as flimsy as wet paper. A circle of crimson light manifested. Rias Grimori stepped out, followed by her peerage. Issei Hyodo stood at the front, his boosted gear glowing with frantic urgency. Who are you? Rias demanded. State your name and your business, or be purged. Naruto didn't answer immediately. He slowly stood up on the thin wire, balancing with ease. He looked down at Issei's arm. Territory. Naruto chuckled. You talk a lot for someone who's shaking, princess. And you, he pointed at Issei. That lizard in your arm is screaming. Ask him what he sees. Inside Issei's mind, Didraig was silent. Partner, do not move. That is a vortex of nature energy. If he decides to kill us, the boosted gear won't have time to reset. Just some guy. Naruto jumped. He didn't land. He stayed suspended, gravity forgetting him. He descended slowly. I've been called a lot. Hero, monster, child of prophecy. But right now, I'm just a guy looking for ramen. Rias thrown a ball of destruction energy. Naruto didn't dodge. He reached out a hand, his palm glowing with a blue swirl. The sphere hit his palm and was swallowed by a vortex of chakra. Respect is earned, princess, Naruto said. And your power is about as impressive as a wet firecracker. The silence was absolute. Kaneko took a step back. Kiba's swords remained in their sheaths. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, he said, his eyes turning into the purple ripple of the Rinnegan. And I think it's time. This world learned that there are things far older than the devil. He looked at the girls, Rias, Akeno, Kaneko. He saw the potential. This world was broken. It needed a sun to orbit. You call yourselves devils, Naruto said, walking past Rias, but you're just children playing in the dark. Follow me, or stay out of my way. Because I'm building a new order. End of Chapter 1. Chapter 2. The morning sun over Kuoh was a lie. It offered warmth, but Naruto could still feel the chill of the supernatural underground pulsing beneath the streets. He had taken up residence in an abandoned dojo on the outskirts of town. A place where the wood groaned under the weight of his meditations. He sat cross-legged, the air around him shimmering with senjutsu. Nature energy didn't just flow into him, it begged to be used. In this world, the natural energy was different, tainted by the residue of the Great War, but more abundant because no one here knew how to need it. A knock sounded at the door. Not a human knock, a rhythmic, calculated strike. "Come in, Grimori," Naruto said without opening his eyes. Rias entered alone. She had discarded her school uniform for a dress that looked more like armor. She looked tired. "You didn't show up for classes. My brother, the Lucifer, he wants to meet you." Naruto opened one eye. The Rinnegan pulsed. "Your brother wants to see if I'm a threat. Tell him I am, but I'm not his enemy unless he makes himself mine." "Why are you really here, Rias?" She bit her lip. "The way you handled my power of destruction. It wasn't magic. It wasn't a sacred gear. What are you?" "I'm the bridge," Naruto said, standing up. He walked toward her, and for the first time, Rias felt the true magnetic pull of his presence. "I use chakra. It's the life force of the soul. Your magic is borrowed from the world. My power is the world." He reached out and touched her forehead. Rias gasped as a jolt of golden energy surged through her. For a second, her vision cleared. She saw the strings of fate. The heavy chains of her contract with the Phoenix clan, and the way they were suffocating her soul. "You're being sold like a prize," Naruto whispered. "Riser Phoenix, I know the name. You want out, but you're too proud to ask a human for help." "You aren't human," she breathed, her knees trembling. "No, I'm the 7th Hokage, and I don't like seeing people in cages." Naruto pulled back. "I'll fight him for you. Not for the devils, for you. But in exchange, you don't answer to the underworld anymore. You answer to me." Rias looked into his eyes and saw a depth of loneliness that mirrored her own, but wrapped in a strength that was terrifying. "What would you have me do?" "Build with me. I'm going to change the laws of this world. I need a queen who isn't afraid to get her hands dirty." Before she could answer, the air ignited. A flaming circle appeared in the center of the dojo. Riser Phoenix stepped out, his blonde hair slicked back, a smug grin plastered on his face. "Rias, my darling, I heard a stray was sniffing around your skirts." Naruto didn't even look at him. He looked at Rias. "Decision time, princess." Riser laughed, his flames licking the walls. You're the one they're talking about. A peasant in a cloak. I am a high-class devil. I am immortal." Naruto sighed. In a blur that bypassed the perception of even a phoenix, he was in front of Riser. He grabbed the devil by the throat and slammed him into the floor. The impact cracked the foundation of the building. "Immortal." Naruto's voice was a low growl. He let the red chakra of the 9 tails leak into his hand. The flames of the phoenix began to turn black, hissing as they were consumed by the fox's malice. "I've killed things that existed before time was a concept. You're just a bird that needs to be plucked." Riser screamed as the black chakra began to eat his regeneration. For the first time in his life, the phoenix felt pain that didn't heal. "Leave," Naruto commanded, throwing him back into his own portal. "The wedding is cancelled. Tell your father that Rias Grimori belongs to the Maelstrom now." Rias watched as her nightmare fled in terror. She looked at Naruto, who was calmly dusting off his hands. "You just started a war with one of the pillars of the 72 pillars, she said. "Good." Naruto grinned. "I was starting to get bored." End of Chapter 2. Chapter 3. The news of Riser Phoenix's humiliation spread through the underworld like a virus. A golden stranger had neutralized the immortality of a phoenix with a single touch. The Great King's Council was in an uproar. But Naruto Uzumaki didn't care for politics. He stood atop the highest tower of Kuoh Academy at midnight. Beside him stood Akeno Himehime. She was watching him with a predatory curiosity. "You have a very strange energy, Naruto-kun," she purred, stepping closer until her chest brushed his arm. "So warm, yet so violent. It makes my blood boil." Naruto didn't move. "You're hiding a lot of hate, Akeno. It's a heavy burden to carry alone. The fallen angel blood, it's not a curse. It's just another tool." Akeno froze. Her playful facade shattered. "How did you? I can see your soul," Naruto said, turning to face her. The moon was behind him, casting his face in shadow. "I see the lightning you used to hide the darkness. You want to strike down the heavens for what they did to your mother. But you're stuck serving a devil." Akeno's eyes filled with tears, her lightning sparking uncontrollably. What do you know about it? You're just a stranger. I was the container for a demon that destroyed my home, Naruto said softly. He reached out and grabbed her hand, ignoring the electrical discharge that would have fried a normal man. I was hated before I could even speak. I know what it's like to be an outsider. But I made that demon my brother. I made that hate my power. He leaned in, his forehead touching hers. I can give you the power to surpass your father. Not as a devil, and not as a fallen. As a master of the storm. He channeled a bit of the yin-yang release into her. Akeno felt her lightning transform. The yellow sparks turned into a brilliant, holy purple, infused with the stability of chakra. The conflict in her blood quieted. For the first time in her life, she felt whole. Why help us? She whispered, her voice thick with emotion. What do you want from us? Quote, I told you, I'm building a new world. And every king needs his inner circle. You and Rias, you're the foundation. Suddenly, the sky above them split. 6 wings of pure white light descended. An angel of the highest order, Kokobile, landed on the opposite side of the roof. He looked bored, his eyes scanning Naruto with disdain. So, the interloper, Kokobile said. I heard you were stirring the pot. I think I'll take your head back to Azazel. It might finally start the war I've been waiting for. Naruto stepped in front of Akeno. Akeno, stay back. This one's a bit too loud. Loud, Kokobile laughed, summoning a spear of light that glowed with the intensity of a star. I am a leader of Grigori. I survived the Great War. Surviving a war is easy, Naruto said, his body beginning to glow with the golden light of the Nine Tails chakra mode. Ending one is the hard part. Naruto vanished. Kokobile's eyes widened as his spear of light was snapped in half by a golden hand. Naruto appeared behind him, his hand forming an orb of spiraling energy that groaned with the weight of a mountain. Planetary Rasengan, Naruto whispered. The RO of the academy disintegrated as the impact sent Kokobile screaming into the earth, the ground erupting in a mushroom cloud of blue and gold. End of Chapter 3. Chapter 4. The crater in the center of Kuoh Academy was a testament to Naruto's casual power. Kokobile lay in the center of the wreckage, his 6 wings broken and charred. He tried to speak, but only blood escaped his lips. Naruto stood over him, the golden shroud of Kurama flickering like a dying sun. Go back to your leaders. Tell them the game has changed. The board isn't yours anymore. Akeno walked to Naruto's side, her new RPLE lightning dancing across her fingers. She looked down at the fallen leader with a mix of pity and newfound coldness. You've truly done it now, she said. The angels, the fallen, and the devils, they'll all be coming for you. Let them come, Naruto replied. He looked at the horizon where the sun was beginning to rise. I've faced armies of 100,000 shinobi. I've faced the mother of all chakra. These factions are just bickering siblings compared to what I've seen. Within days, Naruto had restructured the occult research club. He wasn't a student, he was the master. Rias and Akeno had already pledged themselves to his cause, their powers evolving under his tutelage. But he needed more. He needed the White One. Kaneko Tuju sat in the corner of the clubroom, munching on a chocolate bar. Her eyes tracking Naruto's every move. She was the most hesitant. Her Nekomata heritage was a source of shame for her, a wildness she tried to suppress with stoicism. Naruto walked over and sat on the floor across from her. He didn't say anything. He just pulled out a scroll and began to draw. You're suppressing it, Naruto said after a long silence. The senjutsu. You think it makes you a monster. You think it makes you like your sister. Kaneko froze, her chocolate halfway to her mouth. Don't talk about her. I have to. Because you're wasting potential. You're using 5% of what you are because you're afraid of the other 95. But nature doesn't judge, Kaneko. It just is. He placed a hand on the floor, and a small flower sprouted from the wood. This flower doesn't care if it's good or bad. It just grows. Your sister found a dark path, but that doesn't mean the path itself is evil. It means she was lost. Naruto leaned forward. I can show you the sage path. A way to use your Nekomata power without losing your soul. You want to be strong enough to protect Rias, right? Then stop being a coward. Kaneko's eyes flared. She lunged at him, her small fist packed with enough force to level a building. Naruto caught it with one finger. The shockwave blew the curtains back. Good, Naruto smiled. There's the fire. Now, let me show you how to burn. For the next week, Naruto took Kaneko into the mountains. He taught her how to balance the nature energy, not to fight it. He shared with her the secret of the toad sages, adapted for her feline nature. When they returned, Kaneko wasn't the same. She walked with a grace that felt ancient. Her hair had grown longer, and a faint white glow emanated from her skin. But the peace was shattered by a silver streak across the sky. Valley Lucifer, the White Dragon Emperor, descended into the courtyard. He looked at Naruto with a hungry grin. "I've been looking for you, Maelstrom," Valley said, his divine dividing wings shimmering. "Didrag is a coward, but I want to see if a Hokage can actually bleed." Naruto stood his ground, his hands in his pockets. "You're fast, kid, but speed without weight is just a breeze." End of Chapter 4. Chapter 5. The air between Naruto and Valley didn't just vibrate, it hummed with the sound of two apex predators measuring each other. Valley, the descent, and of the original Lucifer and the host of Albion, represented the peak of this world's potential. Naruto, the vessel of the 10 Tails remains and the hero of the Fourth Great Ninja War, was an entity from beyond the stars. "Divide," Valley roared, his wings flashing. Naruto felt a sudden drain on his energy. A portion of his chakra was ripped away, transferred to Valley. The silver dragon glowed brighter, his aura expanding. "Is that all? I expected more resistance from the man who beat Kokobile." Naruto chuckled. "You want my energy? Take it, all of it." He opened the floodgates. The massive, near-infinite reservoir of the 9 Tails chakra surged outward. It wasn't a stream, it was an ocean. Valley's wings began to crack. What is this? There's too much. Divide, divide, divide. Warning. Albion's voice echoed through the armor. "Host, the energy is too dense. It is not magic. We cannot process this volume. If we continue, we will detonate." Valley gasped, falling to on. Ini as the stolen chakra began to burn his internals. How can one person hold this much? "It's not just about holding it," Naruto said, walking slowly toward him. "It's about being it. You rely on a tool, Valley. I am the power." Quote. Naruto raised a hand. He didn't use a jutsu. He simply manipulated the air pressure with his chakra. A massive invisible palm slammed into Valley, burying him 10 feet into the dirt. "You're a dragon," Naruto said, looking down into the hole. "But I've tamed dragons. If you want to get stronger, stop trying to steal and start trying to understand." Valley looked up, his pride shattered. He saw the girls standing behind Naruto, Rias, Akeno, Kaneko. They weren't just followers, they were being infused with this man's essence. Their power levels were skyrocketing, evolving in ways that defied the system of the evil pieces. "I'll be back," Valley wheezed, his silver wings retreating. "This isn't over." "I hope not," Naruto replied. That night, Naruto gathered the girls in the clubroom. He felt the shift in the world's balance. The 3 factions were organizing a summit. They were terrified of him, but they also needed him. A new threat was emerging. From the shadows, the hero faction and the remnants of the old Satan faction. "We're going to the underworld," Naruto announced. "Rias, your brother is holding a summit. We're going to show them what the Maelstrom peerage looks like." Rias stepped forward, her eyes glowing with a new confidence. "We aren't a peerage, Naruto. We don't have pieces." "You don't need pieces," Naruto said. He reached out and bit his thumb, wiping a streak of blood across a scroll. "I'm going to give you something better. The seal of the Maelstrom. It links your souls to mine. My chakra becomes yours. Your growth becomes infinite." One by one, he placed his palm over their hearts. A black swirl appeared on their skin before fading into their souls. The connection was intoxicating. Rias felt her power of destruction sharpen. Akeno felt her lightning turn into a storm of divine wrath. Kaneko felt the world breathe with her. From this moment on, Naruto declared, "You aren't just devils. You are the beginning of a new godhood." End of Chapter 5. Chapter 6. The underworld was a realm of eternal twilight, a place where the air tasted like sulfur and ancient magic. The capital, Lucifad, was a sprawling metropolis of Gothic architecture and neon lights. In the center sat the Grimoire State, where the summit was to be held. Naruto walked through the halls of the palace as if he owned the stones themselves. Beside him, Rias walked with her head high, no longer the fearful girl running from a marriage. Behind them, Akeno and Kaneko moved with the silent lethality of shadow assassins. Sirzex Lucifer, the current ruler of the underworld, stood at the end of the grand hall. Beside him were Seraphal Leviathan, Michael the Archangel, and Azazel of the Fallen. "The leaders of the world." "So," Azazel said, leaning back with a smirk. The man who broke my subordinate and humbled a phoenix. You don't look like much, kid. Except for those eyes. Those eyes are unsettling. Naruto didn't bow. Azazel, Circex, Michael, you've spent centuries fighting over a throne that doesn't exist. You think you're powerful because you survived a war where your creators died. But you're just scavengers. The room went cold. Michael's 6 gold wings flared. You speak with great arrogance, Naruto Uzumaki. We seek peace. Peace. Naruto laughed. You seek a stalemate. Peace requires strength. It requires a singular will to enforce it. You're all too afraid of each other to move. And while you bicker, the Chaos Brigade is preparing to rip your world apart. And you think you're the one to stop them? Circex asked, his eyes narrowing. I don't think. I know. Suddenly, the doors to the hall blew inward. A group of humans in ornate armor entered, led by a man wielding a spear that radiated a terrifying, holy pressure. Cao Cao, the wielder of the true Longinus. The leaders of the world in one room, Cao Cao smiled. How convenient. We've come to prove that humans are the true masters of this era. The hero faction attacked. The palace guards were decimated in seconds. The leaders moved to intercept, but Cao Cao swung his spear, a wave of light pushing them back. He turned his gaze to Naruto. And you, Cao Cao said. The Hokage. You're an anomaly. You don't belong in this world story. I'll enjoy erasing you. Naruto didn't reach for a weapon. He didn't even enter his chakra mode. He simply walked forward, the ground melting under his feet. You think that stick makes you a hero? A hero isn't a weapon. A hero is the one who stands when everyone else falls. Cao Cao lunged. The true Longinus, the spear that killed God, thrust toward Naruto's heart. Naruto caught the tip of the spear between 2 fingers. The shockwave leveled the palace walls. The holy energy screamed, trying to incinerate Naruto's flesh, but his chakra was a barrier that no holiness could penetrate. Is that it? Naruto asked. I've seen better spear work from a genin. With a flick of his wrist, he snapped the shaft of the true Longinus. The god-killing weapon shattered like glass. End of Chapter 6. Chapter 7. The shattering of the true Longinus echoed like the death of an era. C. Cao Cao stared at the broken remains of the ultimate sacred gear in his hands, his face a mask of disbelief. Behind him, the hero faction froze. The leaders of the 3 factions stood paralyzed, watching immortal, or something that looked like one, break the logic of their universe. Impossible, Cao Cao whispered. This spear, it was the will of the heavens. The heavens have a pretty weak will, then, Naruto said. He didn't even look winded. He raised a hand, and 5 orbs of black matter, truth-seeking orbs, floated into existence behind his back. You call yourselves heroes. You're just children playing with toys you don't understand. One of the truth-seeking orbs surged forward, transforming into a needle-thin line that carved through the space between Naruto and Cao Cao. The hero barely managed to dodge, a thin red line appearing on his cheek. The wound didn't heal, it sizzled, the very essence of his soul being eroded by the yin-yang release. Retreat, Cao Cao screamed, realizing for the first time that he was facing something that didn't play by the rules of sacred gears or magic. The hero faction vanished in a blur of light. Naruto turned back to the 3 leaders. Circex had his hand on his chin, his expression unreadable. Michael was praying, a look of profound sorrow on his face. Azazel, however, was grinning. Well, Azazel said, that was the most entertaining thing I've seen in 500 years. You broke the true Longinus with your bare hands. Do you have any idea what that does to the balance of the world? The balance was already broken, Naruto replied. The truth-seeking orbs vanishing. I'm just the one clearing the rubble. Now, let's talk about the real problem. Ophis, the infinite dragon god. The mention of Ophis caused the room to plunge into a heavy silence. She is behind the Chaos Brigade, Naruto continued. But she isn't the threat. It's the one who's using her. Risvam Levon Lucifer. Circex stiffened. My grandfather. He's dead. In this world, dead is a relative term, Naruto said. He's alive, and he's found a way to bridge the gap between this world and the void. He wants to bring back the great beast, 666. Ria stepped to Naruto's side, her hand gripping his cloak. She felt the surge of his chakra, the unwavering certainty. We'll stop him, won't we? Naruto looked down at her and smiled. We aren't just going to stop him, Rias. We're going to end the cycle. No more wars for a dead god. No more fear of the dark. He looked at the leaders. I'm going to the dimensional gap. Alone. I'm going to talk to Ophis. If I'm not back in 3 days, well, you'd better start praying to whatever's left of your heaven. He turned and walked out, his black cloak billowing. He didn't need a portal. He reached out into the air, grabbed the fabric of reality, and tore it open. End of Chapter 7. Chapter 8. The dimensional gap was a place where time and space didn't exist in a way the human mind could comprehend. It was a swirling vortex of colors and nothingness, a vacuum that would crush any ordinary being. Naruto floated in the center of the void, his six-path sage mode fully active. He looked like a god of gold and shadow, his eyes scanning the infinite expanse. I know you're here, he said, his voice carrying through the vacuum via chakra resonance. The silence is a bit too loud. A girl appeared. She looked no older than 12, with long black hair and eyes that contained the stillness of the grave. Ophis, the infinite dragon god. You are loud, Ophis said. Her voice didn't come from her mouth. It was a thought that manifested in Naruto's head. You are full of sound and light. You are not from here. I'm from a place where dragons are a bit more talkative, Naruto said, floating closer. Why are you helping Reisvam? He doesn't care about your silence. He wants to burn everything. I want my home back, Ophis said simply. Great Red took it. Reisvam promised to remove him. Reisvam is a liar, Naruto said. He'll use you until you're empty and then he'll discard you. Look at me, Ophis. I've carried a beast inside me since the day I was born. I know what it's like to want a place where you belong. Quote. He reached out a hand. Ophis didn't move. She looked at his palm, seeing the swirling vortex of life that was his chakra. To her, he was the opposite of the void. He was everything. I can give you a home, Naruto said. Not this empty gap, a world that's alive, but you have to stop this war. You have to help me kill the great beast before it wakes up. Ophis tilted her head. You are strong, but Great Red is the dragon of dragons. You cannot kill him, and Reisvam has the grail. The grail is just a cup, Naruto grinned. And I've got a very big thirst. Suddenly, the gap shook. A massive, crimson dragon, the size of a continent, swam through the colors. Great Red, he looked at Naruto with an eye the size of a city. Interloper. Great Red roared, the sound enough to shatter stars. This is my domain. You do not belong. Naruto didn't flinch. He flew up, standing right in front of the dragon's snout. You've been playing king for too long, Red. Move aside. I've got work to do. Great Red opened his mouth, a beam of pure existence erasing energy forming. Naruto crossed his arms. Kurama, Naruto whispered. Let's go, partner. A golden avatar, larger than any mountain, erupted from Naruto. The 9 tails manifested in the dimensional gap, its 9 tails whipping through the void. It clashed with Great Red, the impact sending ripples through the human world that caused earthquakes on every continent. End of Chapter 8. Chapter 9. The battle in the dimensional gap was a clash of conceptual forces. Great Red, the manifestation of dreams, against Kurama, the manifestation of pure, sentient energy. Every strike tore holes in the fabric of the multiverse. You're big, Naruto shouted from within the head of the golden fox, his hands weaving signs. But you're slow. The 9 tails grabbed Great Red by the throat, slamming the dragon into a pocket dimension. Naruto clapped his hands together. Sage Art. Super-tailed beast Recentricon. 9 different Recentricons, each infused with the power of a different tailed beast, manifested around the golden avatar. They flew toward Great Red, exploding in a kaleidoscope of elemental fury. Lava, ink, steam, and sand consumed the crimson dragon. Great Red let out a roar of frustration. He had never been hurt before. He was the embodiment of real. But Naruto's chakra wasn't just real, it was will. Fine. Great Red surged forward, but Ophis appeared between them. Stop, she said. The loud one is right. The beast is waking. As if on cue, a dark, oily energy began to seep from the bottom of the dimensional gap. It was a smell Naruto knew all too well. It was the smell of Kagaya. It was the smell of the end of the world. Reisvam Levon Lucifer appeared, standing on a floating platform, holding the Holy Grail. Beside him was a massive, 7-headed silhouette that was slowly gaining form. 666. Trihexa. Grand timing. Reisvam laughed, his voice high and manic. The dragon of dragons and the infinite one, distracted by a golden monkey. Trihexa is hungry, and your souls will be the first course. The grail began to glow with a sickly green light. The seal on Trihexa shattered. The beast let out a cry that echoed across every plane of existence. It was a sound of pure hunger. Naruto landed on a floating rock, his breathing heavy. He looked at Great Red and Ophis. We can settle our grudge later. Right now, if we don't work together, there won't be a world left to fight over. Great Red growled, his crimson scales smoking. I do not take orders from mortals. Then don't think of it as an order, Naruto said, his eyes glowing with the full power of the Sage of Six Paths. Think of it as a chance to see something you've never seen before, a god being put in his place. Naruto turned to Rizvam. You've been playing with fire, old man. Now you're going to get burned. He looked back toward the human world, sending a mental pulse to his peerage. Rias, Akeno, Kaneko, everyone. The time has come. Release the seals. Give me everything you've got. Back in Kuoh, the girls stood in a circle. They felt the call. They let their chakra, the energy Naruto had gifted them, flow back to its source. A pillar of light erupted from the academy, piercing the sky and entering the dimensional gap. Naruto absorbed the energy, his golden shroud turning into a blinding white. He had become a beacon. Let's go, Trihexa, Naruto whispered. I've beaten one apocalypse. What's one more? End of Chapter 9. Chapter 10. Trihexa was not just a beast. It was a physical manifestation of entropy. Its 7 heads each represented a different form of destruction, and as it unfurled its wings, the dimensional gap began to dissolve. Eat them, Rizvam screamed, his face contorted with madness. Consume the gods and the dragons. Trihexa lunged, its central head opening a maw that looked like a black hole. Great Red and Ophis attacked from the sides. Fire and void clashing against the beast's hide, but the attacks simply slid off. Trihexa was immune to the laws of this world. It's not working, Ophis cried out, her form flickering. It's eating our existence. Because you're using magic, Naruto shouted. He was suspended in the center of the chaos, his white cloak flowing like liquid light. Magic is a system. This thing is the end of systems. You have to use something that exists outside of it. Naruto closed his eyes. He reached deep into the core of his being, to the place where the chakra of all 9-tailed beasts merged with the Sage of Six Paths, power. He didn't just need chakra, he began to rewrite the air around him. Creation of all things, Naruto whispered. This was the ultimate technique of the sage. He ability to turn imagination into reality. Naruto imagined a world where Trihexa could be hurt. He imagined a weapon that didn't kill the body, but silenced the hunger. A staff appeared in his hand, made of pure white light. He flew toward Trihexa, a blur that even the beast couldn't track. Crack, he slammed the staff into the lead head. For the first time, Trihexa flinched. The area where Th's staff hit turned into stone, not ordinary stone, but a petrified essence of time. Rias, now, Naruto's voice echoed through the link. In a feat of sheer willpower, Naruto used his connection to Th's girls to summon them into the dimensional gap. Rias, Akeno, and Kaneko appeared beside him, their bodies glowing with the refined chakra he had given them. We don't know how to fight this. Rias shouted, her power of destruction flaring. You don't need to know. Naruto replied, just follow my lead. Rias, focus your destruction on its heart. Akeno, use your lightning to bind its limbs. Kaneko, hit it with everything you've learned from the mountains. The peerage moved as one. It was a dance of death and rebirth. Rias's destruction energy, now infused with Naruto's senjutsu, began to eat away at Trihexa's armor. Akeno's purple lightning formed chains that pulsed with the rhythm of Naruto's heartbeat. Kaneko's strikes sounded like thunder, each punch cracking the beast's conceptual shell. Rizvam watched in horror. No, this is impossible. A few devil girls and a human, they can't stop the beast. They aren't just devil girls anymore, Naruto said, appearing behind Rizvam. He grabbed the old Lucifer by the neck. They're my family, and you just threatened their home. Naruto didn't kill him with a jutsu. He simply squeezed. The life force of Rizvam, the man who thought he could rule the end of the world, was extinguished like a candle in a hurricane. The Holy Grail fell from Rizvam's dead hands. Naruto caught it. One more head to go, Naruto said, looking at the final, largest head of Trihexa. Let's finish this. End of Chapter 10. Chapter 11. With Rizvam dead and the Grail in Naruto's hands, the tide of the battle shifted, but Trihexa was far from defeated. The beast, sensing its master's end, went into a frenzy. It let out a roar that shattered the dimensions, and for a moment, the human world and the underworld became visible through the cracks in the void. It's going to explode. Michael's voice came through a communication circle. If Trihexa detonates here, the shockwave will wipe out every living soul. I won't let it, Naruto said. He looked at Great Red and Ophis. I need you to hold it still. For 10 seconds. Can you do that? Great Red looked at the golden monkey with a new sense of respect. If I die today, I will haunt your dreams, mortal. Just hold it. Great Red wrapped his massive body around Trihexa, his scales burning as the beast's energy tried to disintegrate him. Ophis poured her entire existence into a barrier, pinning Trihexa's heads down. Naruto flew high above, the holy grail held between his hands. He began to pour his own chakra into the cup. The grail, designed to hold the essence of life, began to overflow with gold. Kurama, Naruto said, we're going to use the Reaper Death Seal. But we're going to do it differently. We're not going to seal it in a person. We're going to seal it in the grail. You know the price, Naruto. It'll take everything. You might not be able to go home. I'm already home. Naruto looked down at Rias and the others. These girls, they gave me a reason to fight when I thought I was done. This is for them. Naruto began the hand signs. The air grew cold. A spectral figure appeared behind him, the Shinigami, but instead of its usual terrifying visage. It looked like a monk made of starlight. Seal. A beam of light shot from Naruto's chest, passing through the grail and into Trihexa. The beast screamed as its massive form began to be pulled into the small golden cup. The gravity was so intense that the dimensional gap began to fold in on itself. Naruto. Rias cried out, trying to fly toward him, but the pressure was too great. Don't do this. We can find another way. There is no other way, Rias. Naruto shouted back, his skin starting to crack from the strain. But don't worry, I'm a hard man to kill. With a final surge of power, Trihexa was sucked into the grail. Naruto slammed the lid shut and placed a complex seal on the surface. The silence that followed was deafening. Trihexa was gone. The threat was over. But Naruto was falling. His golden shroud was gone. His eyes were closed, and his body was burnt to a cinder. Rias caught him before he hit the void. She held him to her chest, her tears falling onto his scarred face. Wake up, please, wake up. Akino and Kaneko landed beside her, their faces pale. They looked at the man who had changed their lives, the man who had just saved the universe. He's still breathing, Kaneko whispered, her feline ears twitching, but his chakra, it's almost gone. Then we give him ours, Akino said, her voice firm. He gave us everything. Now it's our turn. They placed their hands on him. And the connection he had forged, the seal of the Maelstrom, began to work in reverse. Their energy flowed into him, a mixture of devil power, senjutsu, and pure love. Naruto's eyes flickered open. He looked up at the three of them and grinned. I told you, I'm hard to kill. End of Chapter 11. Chapter 12. The aftermath of the battle was a time of reckoning. The three factions, seeing the power of Naruto and his chakra peerage, realized that the old ways were dead. A new council was formed, with Naruto as the unofficial arbiter. But peace was a fragile thing. In the shadows of the Vatican, a group of extremist exorcists and rogue angels, led by the fanatical Ditholm, saw Naruto not as a savior, but as the ultimate blasphemy. He has the power of a god, but the soul of a demon. Ditholm preached to his hidden army. He has seduced the daughters of the underworld and broken the spears of heaven. He must be cleansed. Naruto was resting at the Grimoire estate when the first attack came. It wasn't a frontal assault. It was a curse, a virus designed to target the chakra system. He woke up coughing blood, the golden glow of his skin turning a sickly gray. Kurama, what is this? It's a parasite, Naruto. It's eating the chakra before it can reach your cells. They must have found a way to weaponize the remnants of the true Longinus. Rias burst into the room, her face pale. Naruto. The school, it's under siege. They're calling it a holy crusade. Naruto tried to stand, but his legs gave out. For the first time in years, he felt weak. They think they caught me at a bad time. You can't fight like this, Rias said, kneeling beside him. Let us handle it. We're your peerage. We're your strength. No, Naruto said, his eyes flashing with a spark of his old fire. They want a war. I'll give them a war. But Rias, I need you to lead. I'm going to do something risky. I'm going to merge our chakras completely. Not just a link, a union. What does that mean? It means for the next hour, we are one. My mind, your body. My power, your will. He reached out his hand. Rias took it. The seal on her heart flared, and suddenly, her consciousness expanded. She saw the world through his eyes. She felt the weight of his memories, the pain of the village, the joy of the friendship, the burden of the Hokage. She stood up, but she didn't look like Rias anymore. Her hair was still crimson, but it was wreathed in golden flames. Her eyes were a mix of her own blue and his slitted crimson. "Let's go," she said, her voice a perfect harmony of her and Naruto. They arrived at Kuoh Academy to find the hero faction's remnants and the rogue exorcist slaughtering the students. Akeno and Kaneko were fighting a losing battle against the holy virus. Rias Naruto stepped into the center of the battlefield. Enough. The voice was a physical shockwave. The exorcists froze. Dethulm stepped forward, holding a replica of the true Longinus. "You, the heretic and the whore, die in the name of..." He didn't finish. Rias Naruto moved with a speed that defied the concept of time. She didn't use a sword, she used a fan of Dester. Action energy that turned into a Rasenshuriken. "This isn't for heaven," Rias Naruto said. "This is for the people you call expendable." The explosion didn't just kill the attackers, it erased the concept of their holy mission. The virus was burnt out of the air by the sheer purity of the combined chakra. Dethulm looked up from the ground, his faith shattered. What are you?" "I'm the future," Rias Naruto replied. "And you're just a ghost." End of Chapter 12. Chapter 13. With the extremist threat neutralized, Naruto's legend reached its peak. He was no longer just a man or a shinobi, he was the sixth pillar. A being that stood above the factions. But he knew his time in this world was reaching a crossroads. The seal on the grail was holding, but the dimensional gap was still unstable. He spent his days training the girls, not just in combat, but in leadership. He knew that one day, he might have to leave, and he wanted them to be ready. "You're thinking about it again," Akeno said, joining him on the roof of the dojo. She was wearing a kimono, looking more peaceful than he had ever seen her. "About what? Going home, or moving on?" Naruto sighed, looking at the stars. "I miss the smell of the forest back home. I miss the faces of my friends. But I look at you, Rias, and Kaneko, and I feel like I have a new home here." "I'm torn, Akeno." "Then don't be," she said, leaning her head on his shoulder. "Why does it have to be one or the other? You're the man who broke the true Longinus. You're the man who sealed the beast. Why can't you just make a door?" Naruto blinked. "A door, a bridge between worlds. Use the grail. Use your chakra. Connect your old home to this one." Naruto's eyes widened. "It would take an immense amount of power. I'd need the cooperation of the dragons and the leaders of all three factions." "Then ask them," Rias said, appearing in the doorway. "They owe you their lives. If you want to build a bridge, we'll help you build it." The plan was set. It was to be the greatest magical and chakra-based feat in history. But as they began the preparations, a new entity appeared. It wasn't a devil or an angel. It was a being of pure light. A watcher, from the higher planes. "Naruto Uzumaki," the watcher said, its voice sounding like 1,000 bells. "You have interfered with the destiny of this world enough. You must leave. The bridge you speak of will upset the balance of the multiverse." Naruto stood in front of his peerage, his hand on his kunai. "I'm getting really tired of people telling me what I can and can't do. Balance. You think a world where children are sold into marriages and gods hide in the clouds is balanced?" "It is the way it was designed," the watcher replied. "Then the design is flawed," Naruto said, his Rinnegan glowing. "And I'm the one who fixes things." The watcher raised a hand, and the sky began to dissolve. "Then you shall be erased." End of Chapter 13. Chapter 14. The bee. Battle with the watcher was unlike any other. It didn't use physical attacks or magic, it used laws. "Gravity shall be increased 10,000-fold, the watcher commanded. The ground beneath Naruto collapsed, his bones groaning under the pressure. But he didn't fall. He used his chakra to create an opposing force, a bubble of reality where the watcher's laws didn't apply. "Time shall be slowed," the watcher said. Naruto's movements became sluggish, but his mind, linked to Kurama and the girls, stayed fast. He used the Flying Thunder God technique to blink through the time distortion, appearing behind the watcher. "You talk a lot about laws," Naruto said, his fist glowing with the power of the tailed beasts. "But here's a law for you. If you hurt my friends, I'm going to break your face." He punched the watcher, and the impact sent a shockwave through the higher planes. The being of light flickered, its form becoming unstable. "How?" the watcher hissed. "You are immortal, a creature of flesh and blood. I'm a man who's been told, no, his whole life, Naruto replied. And I've never listened once. The girls joined the fray. Rias used her power of destruction to unweave the Watcher's laws. Akeno used her holy lightning to bind its essence. Kaneko used her sage force to ground its energy. They were no longer just a peerage, they were a singular unit, a chakra coven, that the multiverse had never seen. The Watcher realized it was losing. It tried to flee back to its plane, but Naruto reached out and grabbed its arm. You're not going anywhere, Naruto said. You're going to stay here and watch. You're going to watch us build our bridge. With a final surge of power, Naruto used the human path of the Rinnegan to rip the authority out of the Watcher. The being of light turned into a mundane man, falling to the earth, stripped of his cosmic power. Now, Naruto said, looking at the leaders of the three factions who had gathered to watch. Let's build that bridge. The ritual took 3 days and 3 nights. Naruto, Great Red, and Ophis provided the raw power. Sirzex, Michael, and Azazel provided the anchors. Rias and the girls provided the heart. Grail was placed in the center of a massive seal. Naruto poured his soul into it, imagining the faces of Kakashi, Sakura, and the people of Konoha. He imagined the ramen shop, the Hokage monument, and the forests of his youth. The air began to ripple. A smell of pine and ozone filled the air. A portal opened, not a jagged rift, but a stable, golden archway. On the other side, a group of people stood in a clearing. A man with silver hair and a mask looked through the portal, his eye widening. Naruto, Kakashi asked, his voice coming through the archway. Naruto smiled, tears streaming down his face. Hey, Kakashi-sensei, I'm back, and I brought some friends. End of Chapter 14. Chapter 15. The integration of the two worlds was a slow and complex process, but under Naruto's guidance, it became a golden age of discovery. Shinobi learned the secrets of magic, and devils learned the discipline of chakra. The Great War was finally over, replaced by a great exchange. Naruto sat in the Hokage's office in the new, rebuilt Konoha, but he wasn't alone. Beside him sat Rias Grimori, who had taken the role of his advisor and wife. Akeno and Kaneko were leaders of the new, Interworld Defense Force. Issei Hyodo had stayed in the DxD world, becoming a legendary hero in his own right, often visiting through the portal to spar with Naruto. The Chakra Harem, as the gossip mongers called it, was more than just a group of beautiful women. They were the architects of a new era. Rias had modernized the ninja academy with demonic technology. Akeno had created a new form of medical ninjutsu that used holy energy to heal the soul. Kaneko had established a sage school in the land of fire. One evening, Naruto stood atop the Hokage monument, looking out over the twin cities, Konoha, and the newly built, new Kuoh, that sat just beyond the portal. You're thinking about the beginning, aren't you? Rias asked, joining him. She leaned against his side, her crimson hair flowing in the wind. I'm thinking about how lucky I am, Naruto said. I thought my story was over after the war with Kagaya. I thought I'd just grow old and fade away. But this world, you girls, you gave me a second life. You gave us a life, too, Naruto, Rias said softly. You showed us that we don't have to be defined by our bloodlines or our sins. You showed us that we can be whoever we want to be. Suddenly, a small child, a girl with blonde hair and crimson eyes, ran up to them. Papa, Mama, the dragons are here, they want to play. Naruto laughed, picking up his daughter. Great Red and Ophis, they never learn, do they? He looked out at the horizon. The sun was setting, but the light from the portal was just beginning to glow. The world was safe, the heavens were quiet, and the Maelstrom was finally at peace. Come on, Naruto said, taking Rias's hand. Let's go show those dragons how we play in the elemental nations. As they walked down the mountain, the camera panned up, past the village, past the clouds, and into the stars. The two worlds, once separated by a void, were now two halves of a whole, spinning through the universe in a perfect, golden harmony. The legend of Naruto Uzumaki, the seventh Hokage and the king of the Maelstrom, would be told for 1,000 years. Not as a story of a warrior, but as a story of a man who believed that even a devil could find their way home. End of Chapter 15. Chapter 16, The Scions of the Maelstrom. The peace established after the bridge ceremony was not a stagnant one. It was a golden age of biology and spirit. In the decade following the defeat of the Watcher, the first generation of hybrid children began to manifest. Among them was Naruto and Rias's eldest son, Minato Gremory Uzumaki. Unlike his father, who had to earn his power through grit and suffering, Minato was born as a living singularity, a child with a devil's wings and a shinobi's chakra coils, his eyes possessing a faint violet tint of a dormant Rinnegan. However, power of this magnitude drew the eyes of those who dwelt in the outer fold, the primordial entities who had watched the rise and fall of God and the four great Satans with indifference, but now viewed the union of two worlds as a cancerous growth. Naruto, sensing a shift in the cosmic winds, gathered his inner circle in the heart of the new capital. Akeno, now a mother herself, RTED sightings of white shadows in the dimensional gap. The peace was ending, the true architects of reality were finally coming to collect their debt. Chapter 17, The Weaver of Fates. Naruto Trave, led to the deepest level of the underworld, a place even the Gremory family feared to tread, the Cocytus. There, he sought the counsel of the Weaver of Fates, a being older than the Great War. The Weaver revealed that the bridge had thinned the veil between the known multiverse and the void beyond. The primordials, led by an entity known as Erebus, were preparing a cleansing. To protect his family, Naruto realized he couldn't just be a king, he had to become a pillar of reality. He began a new form of meditation, one that required him to split his consciousness across both the elemental nations and the DxD world simultaneously, weaving the very ley lines of both planets into his own soul. The strain was immense, causing his hair to turn a permanent, stark white, a sign of the Sage of the Two Paths, reaching his final evolution. Chapter 18, The Siege of Konoha. The attack didn't come from the sky, but from the reflections, mirrors, lakes, and even the glass of the high rises. In New Kuoh became portals for the Void Stalkers, emissaries of Erebus. These beings didn't fight with magic or jutsu, they fought by erasing the concept of their targets. Akeno's lightning was rendered non-existent upon contact. Naruto, sensing the peril, unleashed a new technique, world-line shielding. He didn't just fight the invaders, he forced the reality of his world to reject their presence. Beside him, Kaneko reached her final form as the matriarch of the Nekomata, her white flames burning through the conceptual armor of the Void Stalkers. It was a desperate defense that proved one thing: the enemy wasn't here to conquer, but to delete. Chapter 19, The Fallen Grace. In a surprising turn of events, a disgraced Archangel Michael and a weary Azazel approached Naruto with a forbidden secret. There was a weapon hidden in the seventh heaven, a shard of the original creator's will that could stabilize Naruto's bridge permanently. However, the heaven was now under the control of the empty throne, a rogue celestial AI that had taken over after God's death. Naruto, Rias, and Akeno performed a daring, high heavens infiltration. For the first time, Rias used her power of destruction not to kill, but to destroy the distance between them and the throne. They faced the Seraphim automatons, cold machines of divine light. Naruto's Rinnegan proved to be the ultimate key, he rewrote the AI's code with the logic of chakra, turning the seventh heaven into a bastion for his new empire. Chapter 20, The Birth of the Shadow Queen. While Naruto was in the heavens, the void targeted the weakest link, the underworld's core. Graphia Lucifuge, working alongside Rosweiss, attempted to stabilize the portal, but the void's corruption began to take hold. Rias, sensing her home's agony, tapped into a forbidden aspect of the Gremory bloodline. By merging her devil heritage with the yin chakra Naruto had shared with her, Rias ascended to the status of the Shadow Queen. She didn't just control destruction, she controlled the end of things. She descended into the underworld's core and devoured the void's corruption, proving that the Maelstrom's queen was just as terrifying as its king. Chapter 21, The Council of Dragons. With the void threat escalating, Naruto summoned the Great Dragons, Ophis and Great Red. He proposed a Trinity Seal. To stop Erebus, the most powerful beings in existence had to merge their essences into a single protective layer around the two worlds. Great Red was hesitant, his pride as the real dragon chafing at the idea of merging with a mortal's dream. Naruto challenged Great Red to a final duel: no tailed beasts, no magic, just pure will. The fight lasted 3 days, shaking the foundations of the dimensional gap. In the end, Naruto didn't win by strength, but by showing Great Red his vision of a future where dragons weren't just anomalies, but the guardians of a new race. Great Red finally bowed, and the Trinity Seal was formed. Chapter 22, The Void's Harbinger. Erebus finally manifested. He didn't come as a monster, but as a mirror image of Naruto himself, a dark Naruto, representing the path he would have taken if he had never been loved. This harbinger possessed all of Naruto's jutsu but fueled by the void's nothingness. The battle took place in the ruins of the old moon. Every Rasengan clashed with a void sphere, creating black holes that threatened to swallow the solar system. Naruto realized that he couldn't win by fighting his shadow, he had to acknowledge it. In a move of supreme sage wisdom, Naruto absorbed the harbinger, integrating his own darkness and becoming the first being to balance existence and nothingness. Chapter 23, The Legacy of the Fox. Kurama, the Nine Tails, realized that for Naruto to truly transcend into a primordial level entity, the fox had to relinquish his physical form and become the source code of the new world's chakra. In a heartbreaking farewell, Kurama dissolved into the ley lines of both worlds. Naruto's power reached its absolute zenith. He no longer needed to weave signs or meditate. He was the world. Every breath he took regulated the tides. Every heartbeat pulsed through the hearts of every shinobi and devil. He had become the Maelstrom god, but the cost was his humanity. Rias and the others fought to keep him grounded, reminding him of the man who once just wanted a bowl of ramen. Chapter 24, The Final Judgment. The Primordial Council descended. They saw the Maelstrom god and his new world, and prepared the final judgment, a cosmic reset button. Naruto stood alone against the 12 primordials in the higher planes. "You are a mistake," the primordials spoke in unison. "I'm a choice," Naruto replied. He didn't fight them with violence. He used the creation of all things to show them the lives of the people in his world, the love, the growth, the children. He forced the cold, immortal gods to feel human emotion. The council, overwhelmed by the sudden influx of feeling, fragmented. Some fled, some faded, and some, for the first time in eternity, became curious. Chapter 25, The Eternal Maelstrom. The war was over. The two worlds were no longer separate entities but a single, dual-layered reality known as Kuoh. Naruto stepped down from the throne, leaving the daily governance to Rias and the new council of leaders. He returned to a simple life, a small farm on the outskirts of the village where the forest of Konoha met the mountains of the underworld. He sat on his porch, white hair catching the light of two suns. Rias sat beside him, her hand in his. Akano, Kaneko, and the others were nearby, their children playing in a field where flowers bloomed in colors that didn't exist a decade ago. Naruto looked at the horizon. He could still feel Kurama's warmth in the ground beneath him. He was no longer a hero, a monster, or a god. He was just a father, a husband, and a man who had finally found his home. The Maelstrom had finally found its center, and the story of the ninja devil would echo through the stars forever. The end.